I will say that most members of Congress are rich. Some are incredibly rich, and some have tens or even hundreds of millions of dollars invested in the market. But this particular conflict is pretty much the biggest conflict I've ever seen.
So, Alex, tell me about the story that you just wrote for The Guardian.
Well, I wrote an opinion piece about Joe Manchin, the powerful Senate Democrat, who is standing in the way of climate provisions in the Democrats' budget package. And it just so happens that Manchin, who opposes these climate provisions, is a coal millionaire. He has a family business that he founded in the 80s that his son runs now. And he makes about $500,000 per year in profits, and his holdings in the company's private stock are worth as much as $5 million. So the thrust of the article is that this is a massive conflict of interest, and Joe Manchin should not be anywhere near these kinds of decisions.
He made $500,000 of profit, of income from the coal company last year.
Just last year alone.
You know, it kind of seems like common sense that the chairman of the committee that regulates coal shouldn't be a part owner of a coal company. I mean, that sounds very much like a classic conflict of interest.
It is textbook conflict of interest, and it's perfectly legal, this situation.
So in other words, he can pass a bill or sponsor a bill that supports the entire industry in which he is involved. That's not a problem. It's only a problem if his own company is singled out.
Yeah, if his own company benefits far more than the other companies. But most or almost all bills in Congress don't single out a single company. They're about broad industry stuff. And so Manchin's free to do whatever he wants. I mean, any bill that reduces regulation or prevents regulation of the fossil fuel industry for climate reasons is going to benefit Joe Manchin.
Alex, when people think of Joe Manchin, they're likely to say, look, he's a senator from West Virginia. Of course he's close to the coal industry. What's strange about that? Isn't that a fair way to look at Manchin?
Well, his most famous campaign ad featured him with a rifle shooting through the pieces of paper that were supposed to be Obama's climate proposals. I mean, he represents the coal industry in the way that he feels like is best for the coal industry. It's fine if you want to go to represent your state the way you think is best, but he has a massive conflict, and therefore he should not be on the Energy Committee, much less the chair. He should not be able to scrap whatever climate provisions he wants out of the federal budget. These are incredibly huge conflicts that I think any self-respecting ethics expert would tell you are completely unacceptable.
Manchin is not just another ordinary senator. This is the guy who, more than anybody else in the Senate, really holds the future of U.S. climate action.
Manchin is incredibly powerful, and unfortunately, yes, this heavily conflicted guy is basically dictating U.S. climate policy. And honestly, part of that I think is Joe Biden's fault. The president has not been pressuring Manchin to pass his agenda. At least there's been no reports of this. And Biden also supports the filibuster, which Manchin is using to block his agenda. It's mind-boggling to me why Biden would sit back and kind of watch this happen. But that's kind of the case. So therefore, Manchin is basically controlling government policy.
What do you say to a climate activist who's pissed off that a guy who owns a part of a coal company is at the very top of the pyramid when it comes to making climate policy in the U.S.? What can climate activists do to turn the situation around?
I think there's a couple ways that citizens can engage with their representatives and their senators. One is, of course, just calling their offices and saying, this is a concern of ours that we have a coal millionaire setting our climate policy. Why don't we do something about it? And also, there's several bills that have been proposed in the last couple of years by Democratic senators that would either prevent the ownership of stocks at all if you're a member of Congress or a senator, or it would prevent you from doing any trading. Both of those things would help the general problem of industry insiders enriching themselves while in Congress and while setting policy that affects those very industries. So I think calling attention to those measures, pressuring Congress to bring them back up and to vote on them and pass them, and frankly embarrassing the people who are invested in these industries. So that stuff is actually effective if you can do it the right way.